Good afternoon. In this video, I want to show you how to use the triggered campaign feature inside of AddressTwo. You may be familiar with the triggered campaign feature if you've signed up for a free trial. First, we're going to go to marketing. I'm going to show you an example of our free trial campaign. Here under the marketing dashboard, underneath your saved templates, I have two campaigns that we use personally here at AddressTwo. The one you're familiar with is probably the free trial download campaign. If I click here under campaign, I can see that this email, or an email, will go out immediately after the trigger happens, 0 days after that. 1 day later, you get another email, and so on and so forth. So in today's video, I want to cover how to create this campaign. I'm going to pull up my test account here. So here you'll see I have two campaign templates saved. I have email number 1, 2, and 3, and then email part 2, number 1, 2, and 3. These are two separate campaigns. I like to actually create my templates first so that I can test them, make sure that they look great, they respond how I want them to, all my links work, etc. And I save them under my templates, create them, test them. That's gone over in a few other videos. But now what I want to do is I want to create two separate campaigns under the marketing dashboard, one for this section of emails and one for this section of emails. So I'm going to scroll down here to campaigns and I'm going to hit the plus button to create a new campaign. This particular campaign, I'm going to call it part 1. I can also edit who has permission to use this. So I can say everybody or just super users and admins. Hit save. And this is where I build the campaign. So under the campaign event editor, over to the right, I click the plus button and I say the first thing I want to do is send an email. It's going to bring up my email editor where again I've already created that first email under the template builder here. Email number 1 as my subject line. I set my time of delivery. I double check and make sure it looks good. And I hit save. I've now created the first step in my 3-step campaign. So on 0 days after that campaign is triggered, so immediately that email number 1 will go out. Now I need to add email number 2 and 3. Clicking the plus button here, again I select email, go. I'm going to remember to send this one out 3 days later. Email number 2. Pulling up my saved template here or creating one down here in the email editor itself, whichever way you prefer. Double checking it, making sure I like how it looks. Save and continue. Now my final and third email in this particular triggered campaign. Plus email go email number 3. And I want this one to go out 7 days later. Another fun thing that I like to do is not only use the email campaigns, but also use the triggered task campaigns as a series of events. So the last thing I'm going to do is on day 8, I want to schedule myself to call this prospect or customer. So I'm going to add a task to my campaign. I set the description, so I would do something like out of email number 1, drip, call, check in, and should you add to drip email number 2, question mark. So this is the actual task. Here I choose who it's assigned to, so I can assign it to a specific user or whoever the account manager is for who is in that campaign. Again, setting my delay for 8 days. And here is my particular series of events. I'm going to hit save. And again, this is email part 1 campaign editor. There are 2 ways to trigger an email campaign. We're going to go over the first one here. So I've now got part 1 email and I want to set this email off to Santa Claus. I pull up Santa Claus's account card here in my database. I see that here is the campaign section in the account card here, I simply click on the plus button. I choose who, if there are multiple contacts in the account card, this particular campaign drip is going to go to. I choose the campaign that I want to send to them, part 1. I choose who it's going to be sent from, when I want that to execute. So in other words, we had set that part 1 email to go out 0 days after activation. So if I set this to 12/1, that email will go out immediately. Maybe it's Friday or Saturday, and I don't want that to go out until Monday. So I then can schedule that campaign to kick off on Monday. And then I can also, at this point, this is my prospect campaign, let's say, and then I also have my customer campaign. But if this was my customer campaign, I can also unqueue from other campaigns. So if they're in the middle of my prospect campaign and they choose to become a customer, I can say, get them off of my prospect campaign and unqueue them from my prospect campaign because I'm putting them in my customer campaign. I now hit execute because I don't have an email set up for that guy. Let's do that. Let's do this. Execute. And now I will see that there are 2 emails in here, email number 2 and email number 3. Then I can also go down here to marketing history and see that email number 1 was immediately sent as soon as I triggered that campaign. Now, I want to, let's say on day 2, they call and they're ready to move over to customer. I can manually untrigger that campaign. So again, clicking here and saying, hey, I want to move you from my part number 1 to my now new email drip here from Troy, and I can unqueue you from other campaigns. Note that there are 2 emails down there now. I hit execute, and now those have been removed and unqueued from the schedule. And now the second way to trigger a campaign or a drip is under the marketing dashboard. You'll see web forms. I can trigger a campaign from a web form. So we're going to create a new web form here by clicking on the plus button. I'm going to call this testing, and let's call this email marketing. Email news sign up. Hit save. I choose in the web form editor what information I want to capture. First name, last name, and let's just capture that email address because they're signing up for our email newsletter. Then I tell the form what else I want to happen. So in here I can say I want a notification to come to me as well as Jill. I can add them to a list, so I call it my newsletter list or something like that. So I'm going to call this contacts to file list. Here is also where I can trigger that campaign. Thanks for signing up for our email newsletter. Here's more information. So here I can trigger that part 1 campaign. So again, that link here would be triggered those 3 emails we created earlier in this video. I then can also redirect them to a URL. And then I can choose to update my CRM if there's information that's found. I can update my CRM with that information. And then I can choose to require a CAPTCHA as well. Here's where I would generate the code, copy and paste this code information into my website or forward it to my website designer to have them customize it a little more and then post it on my website as well. So those are a few tips and tricks on how to use the triggered campaign and triggered campaign editor in AddressTwo. For more information, make sure to check out other videos on this page.